Hello everybody and welcome. I'm Ray from Ray's Crafty Creations and I'm here today with Riverside Crafts. I'm going to be looking at making this little tag here. I've used the stamp set here, which is from Woodware by Francois Reed. And I'm going to show you how to make the stamp work for you. So not only does it work for Christmas, but you can also make it work for the rest of the year as well. So we've got the same tag style, but we've altered the stamp slightly. So I'm going to show you how I did that, and then we're going to make the stamp, make up our nice Christmas tag. Okay, so as you can imagine, we stamp out our image. Okay, so he's nicely stamped and that's where he lives. I'm going to line him up now onto my stamp. I'm going to do it on the stamp because I want it to work when I turn it down. So it's going to go there. Let's move him slightly so he's in the right place. Just line it up because this is my mask to stop me printing where I don't want it to. Okay, that should be a little bit further down. Lightly across. Okay. I'm having a bit of fun doing this today. It doesn't want to line up for me. Typical. Normally I do it and I don't have any problems, isn't it? It's because I'm on doing it today live, isn't it? We'll get it in as best as we can anyway. Okay, I'll do it this way. I've got post-it note pieces here that I just use to help keep everything in place when I'm just moving things around, okay? Because I don't necessarily want all of it missing. There's bits I want to keep. So I want to keep Mr. Gnome where he is, but I don't necessarily want my other bits and bobs hanging around. Right, so I'm going to line him up properly. Again, just get him where I want him to be. Get him nicely lined up. That looks pretty good. Okay, pick it up. I'm going to fold up the bit I don't want to use because I'm not good. I want him here. Okay, so I'm just going to get myself some ink. Okay, I'm going to do this bit quickly. One of the nice things is it's quite quick and easy to just stamp to cut around. It's not too complicated, so you don't have lots of bits you don't want. Right, so here is my nice little gnome. Take my bit out, and to make him so he looks like he's got his sign, I use a Sharpie, one of the fine ones, and I'm just going to follow how the dot line up. So it's like a dotted line. It's not a real harsh sharp line, it's a dotted line. Okay, I'll just put his hat back in where I've missed it, and all I'm going to do is literally just draw myself a sign, and I'm going to do wiggly edges going in and up, and then I can put whatever sentiment I like in there. So I can put in, there we are, and that is how I now make him work all year round when actually he's my Christmas gnome. So now he can be done and used for everything all year round. Okay, right, so now onto the tag. The tag comes and it's MDF, okay, but obviously I don't want to see the MDF, I want them covered. So I'm going to put my glue, and I use Pinflair's bookbinders glue, mainly because I like the control I have on the cap. Okay, and I'm going fairly close to the edge for this. All right, and I've got a piece of paper. Now the cardstock I'm using is from my stash, because as yet we haven't had the new Christmas papers in as such that I've seen, and this is from some that I had from last year's 12. So there's they're a mix of bits and bobs that worked together. Okay, it's a good way of using up all your oddments to do tags, to be honest. Now I need to be able to take off the excess card that I've got around my tag, so I'm just going to quickly follow the edge and cut down. Should do the same on this side, on the bottom, and I'm just going to go around the edge a bit, around the corners, which is not as easy as it sounds. Okay, so I've now got most of my waist gone. I'm going to do shoulders around, okay, okay. Now it's not going to be perfect going all the way around. I've got bits I don't want. To take off all my edges, I use a sanding block, and I literally just go down the side of the MDF very gently, and it takes off any bits of paper that I've got that are in the wrong place, too wide or not neat enough cuts, just so that I've got this nice rounded finished part. Okay, now as you notice, the tag has got a hole. To get my hole, I've got these little tiny files. I've had them for years, but they are called a hobby file. Or you can use a nail file, and a emery board will do it. Literally, just all you got to do is go round the inside, pushing down, and it will just take the excess card out, but give you a nice tidy edge. Whereas trying to do it with a knife, I can't. I've tried. I can't get one in there, and B, I end up with more mess than I started with, which doesn't take much. Right, so I just take off the excess bits. Okay, now when I did this today, I decorated this back piece, and I used this little background stamp that was also from Woodware and by Francois, so I thought I'd use that. I'm just using my new distress ink, which is Salvage Patina, and I have to say I really like the colour. As you can see, I'm not using a block, mainly because I'm not really that bothered about where my snowflakes land. I'm just giving me a little bit of something to look at, and give me a sort of a bit of something on my edge, because I'm going to cover most of it. I just want a little bit of pattern to be seen. Okay, so that's the start of my tag. Okay, now I've got my decorative papers to use. Now I've gone round my decorative papers using a fine liner to do myself a fake stitching, but I also dropped into the shop today and had a new product in which I really liked, which was this, which is a glitter kiss, and this is called Frosty Sparkle. And I went over my decorative paper with it, and look at the shine and the shimmer. I can still see my pattern, but I've got this really cool frosted and it's got like an AB finish on it, which I was really impressed with that. So I'm going to be using that this time, because I think it was very cute and I like that. It's a nice bit of, and I literally just put these on at an odd angle to hang out on either side, so they just sort of sit like so. Okay, so that's how my basic bits start off. And here is my gnome. Now he needs painting because he's not very pretty at the moment, and here are the colours that I used. Bring them in on my palette here. Now I have got forest moss, peeled paint, candied apple, aged mahogany, sapphire, chipped sapphire, brushed corduroy, dried marigold, hickory smoke, pumice stone, pine needles and evergreen bough. I'm going to start off and I'm going to put them on as I use them so that you can see sort of how I built up my colours. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my dried marigold. So that's going on now, and a little bit of aged mahogany, because I'm only going to use it a bit. I'm not going to use lots of that one. Right, paintbrush, and I should have a tissue here, because you don't want your brush to be over wet, because otherwise it makes everything too wet. But you do need to obviously have it a little bit wet. And I'm just going to put the dried marigold on his nose. Okay, I'm going to do his hands as well, because it makes quite a good skin tone, this one does, which is nice to use. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of the aged mahogany and I'm going to put it on his nose, and I'm going to just gently blend it into, and it gives him that nice sort of, looks like he's been outside. He's got that nice little bit of redness on his nose, so he's been out there, or he's been on the wine, whichever. He's having a bit of fun. Okay, so there's my gnome and his nose done. Now I'm going to do his beard. His beard was done using hickory smoke and pumice stone. So I'm just going to put these two down. Hickory smoke is the palest of the two greys, and then you've got pumice stone, which is a slightly greeny grey, but they work quite well. So I'm just going to put an overall wash on first. Okay, nothing too exciting. I hope you're all keeping nice and dry, because boy, we've had all this beautiful weather, and then, oh look, the weekend's here and it's rain. Just what we don't need. Now if you have any questions, I will answer them at the end. I will endeavour to go through all of your comments and have a look and see what it is you're looking at and what it is you were asking about, if they've not been answered already, because I should think either Caroline or somebody else from the shop is on looking at what I'm doing and checking to make sure I don't make any mistakes, and then everything's getting answered like it needs to, because I forget things. I get my head in the crafting and then forget what I'm doing, which I'm sure you all will understand. Okay, and I'm just going to blend this down a little bit. So I've put starting to put some shadow in, but I do need to make sure that it doesn't just take over from the other grey, because I want, so it doesn't look like it's all too dirtyish or something. It just takes it nice and gently. So blended his beard in, which is quite nice. Now because I was using teal and turquoise type papers, I wanted his hat to blend in with that, and because he's got the heart, I wanted to keep the red for the heart. So I've used evergreen bough and pine needles, which are sort of a lighter and a mid-tone of the two. It's salvage patina is like a paler version of it again, so they all blend really nicely together. It gives you a good set of colours to go with. So anyway, I'm just putting this in. Again, I'm just going to do a very light wash. I've got hair on the end of my brush. And that. But I was having a look at all the different stamps we've got in as well today when I went down to the shop. Oh, I think I'm going to be playing this week. I've seen some lovely ones to play with. So so keep an eye out on the site and see what I'm coming up with. But it better still go and have a wander and have a look yourself, because there's some really cute stamps. And we got the new airless misters in as well, and they're nice. I'm going to be using one of those in a little bit, just how to make a background in a moment. And that just to give that. I'm going to drop the darker green in. Can you see how it's starting to because the brush is very wet and the background's wet, it's bleeding in, which is quite nice, because you want it to sort of give you this more of a natural sort of shading in from light to dark. And that, it's gone ever so dark. I hope you can all see. I've got all my bright white lights on, hoping that it's light enough for you to all see what I'm doing, because it's gone ever so dark and overcast outside. And I bet you can hear the rain on the roof actually, which is probably not the best, is it? But there we are. I can't change where my studio is or how it is. Not since it was built for me anyway. Right. Starting to look a bit like we've got some shape coming into his hat. I'm going to leave that to dry for a bit, and I'm going to paint his trousers. Now his trousers, I just used Chip Sapphire, so I did it a pale wash and then then went in a bit more with a deeper colour, and that's just sort of keep. So I did the pale wash first, make it look like it's got a pair of jeans on. Okay, just take some of the water off my brush a bit more, and I can just drop some dark in, and it will sort of naturally, because the card is already wet, bleed out. By the way, just in case I hadn't said, I'm working on watercolour card, which is not the hot pressed one, it's just bog standard watercolour card. This is the one that you can get by Crafter's Companion, so it's nothing fancy. So I'm not spending a long time painting it. It's quite loose. I'm not taking all my time over it, so it doesn't matter. Now, his shoes and the stem of the Christmas tree were all done in the same brown, and for this one I just used brushed corduroy. So I'm just going to do his shoes quickly. When you're doing Christmas cards, unless you have so many to do, if you're like me, and I don't have time to sit and paint everyone in how I would like to, so I tend to do a lot more looser types of watercolour over Christmas cards and things, because it just makes life a bit quicker. Otherwise I spend a long time making cards for everybody. Right, so we've now got the stem done on my tree, his shoes, the hat and bits. I'm going to do my Christmas tree. Now they were painted with two greens, and one was called Peel Paint and the other was Forest Moss. Peel Paint on this, for instance, is the lighter one, and Forest Moss is the darker. So I'm going to put my light wash on first. That. How many of you have had plans for the weekend with all this now it's wet? And that, because it being Father's Day, all these barbecues that people were hoping to have, I would think, might end up being a little bit damper than was planned. And that, but there we go. Okay, so that's my light wash done. I'm just going to put my dark green in to create some shadow, and it's just dropping it underneath where you've got the lines to do the boughs. Okay, and I'm not doing too much fiddling with it, I'm just dropping it in there to give me the idea I've got some shadow, and I'm just going to do a little bit of a wiggle along the edge with a damp brush so I don't have a line. Okay, if I don't think I've got enough in, I'm going to put a little bit more there. If I want to put some shadow around a bauble, I can. So it looks like that one has got, it's got the dark bit underneath it, a bit under the tree, on the star. And I can now blend those, doing the same thing with just a damp brush, not picking up any more colour, just a damp brush to just blend that down a little bit. There we go. So my tree is now done. My hat is nearly dry, so I'm going to start doing some of the patches on my hat, and I'm going to use the Candied Apple red to start with, okay, because I want to do his heart. So I'm going to do the red on his heart now. Now when I do this, I am very careful not to have a very wet brush. My brush is a lot drier than when I do the other colours, mainly because red bleeds quite a lot, and it's a very strong colour, and it will overbleed into all of the other things. So it's best to do it when, not to do it on top of something else that's already wet, if that makes sense, so it gives things a bit of a break and that, or do other bits that you can get to without having to worry about what they're going to be next to now. Okay, so I'm just doing these here. Okay. And I'm going to use the dried marigold to give me a bit, like, looks like it's got a gold bit on it, which will help. Okay, now I'm going to do the red onto the baubles. I'm going to give it a couple of coats so it's a bit more vibrant. There we go. Okay, so that's my red then. Now my stars, I did them in the tealy colour, just because it brought in more of it for what was happening with my background papers. So I'm just going to drop that in. I'm using pine needles again because it's the darker one, just to give me a bit more depth. That's a bit dry, so I'm just going to put a little bit more darker colour along these edges here where I wanted it. Okay, I'm just going to go with a damp brush now and just give me my edges so that that's not done. Okay, I'm going to use the darker grey for the base of his shoes. I just want to put a little bit of shadow on his shoes, so I'm just going to put a little bit of more brown down so that I can get a bit more, and put a little bit here for shadow on his shoes, hopefully. And pick a little bit of forest moss to mix with it so it's darker. Okay, cool. And just take a damp brush and just twirl the edges so it blends it better. That's better. Now I've just got his here to do on his hat, and I'm going to use the blue because I've got it from his jeans, because it just looks nice to keep it all blended in together. So there we go, that's his blue done quite nicely. Right, now put my inks out the way for a minute so I don't get them on my fingers. On here you might notice that the tree has been cut out, but not the whole of him. That was deliberate because I wanted to, it was a long image, and if I put it directly on top of it, it covers all of my tag. So to do that, I'm going to cut this down. I'm going to put a line, just going to mark it very carefully, just above where I want it to go, about there, and very lightly with a pencil, and I do mean lightly, no pressure, just there so that I know that that's where I want my cutting out to stop. Right, so I'm going to take my scissors, I'm going to cut on the inside of that line so that I can't, it's not going to be left there when I finish. Okay, I'm going to cut up round his hat. Okay, up against the edge of the Christmas tree. Okay. Okay. I love making Christmas tags, mainly because, you know, how many people do you buy a bottle of wine for at Christmas, and you look at it and think, oh, that's not very good. It's just it doesn't look like I thought about it. Well, if you stick a tag on it like this, it sort of lifts it lifts the card, it lifts the bottle of wine a bit, doesn't it? It makes it look a bit more like you thought about it. Plus, also, they tend to keep them, because it's sort of a gift in itself. So it's quite a nice way to do, like that. And if you haven't got MDF, you can always use grey board and design your own one. Now, when you get to this point, you have to be very careful, because you don't want to cut all the way across your black line, because you need that there to hold your bauble. So you just need to be quite careful when you do that bit, and make sure that you are a little bit more gentle than you think. Right, so I've got all of that out of the way a minute. Let's clear up a bit, because I've got stuff everywhere. Okay, now I'm going to use my knife, and I'm just going to do a cut line going up there. Right, and I'm just going to check to see how I've done on the back here. Oh, not bad at all. Right, take that bit there. So now I have him cut like this. I'm going to round these corners, because everything else has been done. So I'm just going to take my corner rounder and put him in. Now it's going to be a bit awkward, because it's not quite the right shape, but you can, if you just wiggle, you'll get it there. Okay. And you do need to be careful, otherwise it will be. There we go. So there's my corners done, which now makes him look like this one. Okay, so there we go for that one. So now I'm going to build up my tag properly. Okay, so out comes the glue. First piece down is going to be this one. Please don't tell me you stuck up. No, I didn't think you would do. There we go. Bit of glue gone down. There we go. I'm going to put it coming off at an angle there. Okay. And this piece I'm going to put off some foam tape on the back of it. And I'm using the one that I've got, I put the glitter kiss on, so it's all sparkly, just to give me a little bit of a different feel. And that's going to go off there. I'm going to put some foam tape on the back of my finished piece here. But I'm not putting it on yet, because I've got something else I want to do to it. Okay, so that's looking quite good there. Right, so that's not too bad. So next job is I've got to put, oh, I didn't put the twine on, I forgot. Never mind, I'm sure I can wiggle it in. Let's have a look. A little bit of twine, and then we just sort of squiggle it under the paper. There we go, it'll go under there, that'll do us. And we can wrap it round a few times and go around the whole tag and bits. Okay, and we're going to tie it off. There's a little bit of twine on it. I'm just going to squiggle it out so it's sort of a little bit at different angles. Cut off these long bits, because I just don't really need them to be that long. Have a look at this again, where I'm putting that, because it's going to go sort of to the side here, like that today. I need a button. And the button can go wherever I fancy, so I might put him up there today and do it a little bit differently. Now, it's up to you what your sentiment is. I've got one here that I've put on, and you can put them on or you can leave them. One of the things I did do is I put some glossy accents onto my baubles. But what the other thing that I am going to do now is I'm going to show you how I used my, where have I put it? I've lost my mask. Oh, here it is. That's what I'm looking for. If I do, it should be somewhere. Right. I need to mask off my gnome again, because I'm going to use a little bit of the sparkles that we've got now. Okay, so I'm just going to put that there so it's covered. That's my bit of stickies. I'm just going to wrap it around it a minute just to hold it in place. Okay, and that's going to sit just there. This one, take off that bit for a minute. Right, so these are now covered over. Okay, and I'm going to use one of these airless misters that Cosmic Shimmer have just brought out. So I'm going to make it look like it's all blue in the background, but it'll give a nice fine spray for me if I want it to, or it can go a bit splattery. Depends on how you hold the mister bit down and how hard you press it. I'm still getting used to them. I've only had them a couple of days, so it depends what I do. But I thought we'd have a look-see today. There you go. Give it a nice spritz. They've got mica in, so it will be shiny. Okay, I'm just going to lift up my gnome. Now it goes. Just wipe up the mess. And take my mask out of the way. So now this one's got a little bit of sky behind him. And it looks like it might be snowing, so you can see it's got the white gaps in between, which means I can do my fluffy stuff. Well, this one is Fluff It Paste by Pink Ink Designs. It works in the same way as fluffy stuff. It's a little bit thicker. You can put it on with a palette knife. You can put it on with a brush and do it however it is you would like. Okay, and put it where you fancy it. The more you have on it, the bigger it's got, the more crinkly it goes. So I'm just going to heat this up so you can see. Okay, so we'll just give it a bit of a heat. Hopefully we've not got the spike on too much. There we go, that's better. And that. So how many of you are dreading the Christmas word, and how many of you are all excited about the new craft stuff coming out for Christmas? I bet there's some of you are really interested in it all, and some of you are like, no, not yet, it's not even the summer. I've not had any sunshine for any amount of time. Go away, I want my holiday first. One of the things that you can do with this, with fluffy stuff and with this one by Pink Ink Designs, is you can colour it. And you can colour it with any pigment. So if you've got pixie powders or brushos or pixie sparkles, you can actually change the colour of your fluffy or your fluffy stuff to blend in with whatever it is that you are deciding you want. So this is how much the fluffy stuff, that stuff comes up for you, which is quite a lot, isn't it? It's really quite a lot there for you. So what have I done with the tag? I've put it somewhere. Here it is. There we go. So there we go. And then I'm going to put him. He would go on again. And then I'm just add embellishments as I went along. Okay, so that's a personal choice bit. But I've used a charm here from Riverside Crafts, and the other bits and bobs out of stuff that I've had for a long while. So I've got a bit of ribbon tied on with some twine, which I've got here to go on it. And bits, but there we go. So that is how I did my tag, with a few extras, because I thought it would make it look more like it was snowing if we had some blue behind him. And that I really liked the new Frosty Sparkle Glitter Kiss, because it just gave the paper a little bit more of Christmas, but also it's encapsulated, so when you rub it, it doesn't end up coming off all over your fingers. So it's a nice way of changing up your papers. Hope you enjoyed that today and that you feel that I've shown you something. Hopefully I'll be here next week. Don't know what with, but I will find out as time goes on. So take care, everybody. Bye from Riverside Crafts now. Take care.